The final days of any cycle carry a weight people often ignore, and when it comes to 29th and 30th November, this weight becomes even clearer. These 2 days stand like the edge of a cliff, the moment before a new month, a new momentum, a new chance to correct yourself. And if you don't slow down and isolate during these final days, you miss chance to understand something essential. The end is not just the end. It is a mirror. These last 2 days show you exactly who you have been all month, and they quietly hint at who you will become in the next. When you isolate on 29th and 30th November, you don't hide from life, you step toward yourself with honesty. People rush through their days as if time will always wait for them. But the truth is simple. The last days of the month are not random numbers on the calendar. They are checkpoints. They give you the opportunity to pause and see what you have carried with you for the past weeks. On 2009th and 30th November, when you pull yourself away from the noise, from the world, from the distractions, you slow down enough to feel the truth that usually hides beneath the surface. You start noticing your habits. You see the things you didn't finish. You feel the energy you have been giving away without control. Isolation during these days is not a punishment, it is a reset. The final days always decide the direction of what comes next. Every month, every chapter, every phase follows the same principle. How you close one door determines how you walk through the next. On 2009th November, when you step into silence intentionally, you allow yourself to reflect with clarity. You sit with your thoughts without running from them. You understand where your discipline broke, where your focus scattered, where your emotional state got hijacked. And on 30th November, you seal that understanding by making a clear internal decision. What energy will enter December with you and what energy must stay behind? This is why you isolate. This is why you pause. This is why the last 2 days matter. There is a kind of power that only appears at the end of something. It is not loud. It is not dramatic on its own. But when you approach 29th and 30th November with intention, the power becomes visible. You feel time differently. You feel your mind changing speed. The world outside continues moving fast, but inside, you slow down to the exact pace needed to hear your truth. Growth does not always come from pushing harder. Sometimes it comes from stopping long enough to see what actually needs to change. That is the real reason you isolate at the end of November. It gives you the space to measure yourself without excuses. These 2 days teach you responsibility. They show you that your life is your creation, not the result of accidents. When you isolate on 29th and 30th November, you strip away every distraction that normally shields you from responsibility. You can no longer blame people. You can no longer blame time. You can no longer blame circumstances. You stand alone with your choices. And in that moment, you realize something powerful. If you created the path you have been walking, then you can also create a completely new one. That is self-growth. That is transformation. That is the purity of the final days. Isolation on 29th and 30th November is also a declaration. It is you telling life, I am not giving the month permission to decide my direction. I am deciding it myself. It is you refusing to drift into the next cycle unconsciously. It is you choosing to step into the new month with sharpness instead of confusion, with clarity instead of noise. These 2 days become the bridge between the person you were and the person you are trying to become. If you cross that bridge with awareness, December will not be just another month. It will be a continuation of a conscious choice. When you isolate, you learn how to command your inner world. On 29th and 30th November, you take back the power that was scattered across conversations, obligations, emotions, and unnecessary influences. You pull every piece of yourself back into one place. That feeling of wholeness, even if temporary, becomes the foundation for your next steps. Without it, you rush into the new month carrying the same chaos that held you back before. But with it, you enter December with strength, clarity, and the kind of inner stillness that cannot be shaken easily. The end of November becomes meaningful only when you choose to treat it as meaningful. These last 2 days become sacred when you decide they will not be wasted. When you isolate, you sharpen your vision. You reconnect with the deeper part of yourself, the part that knows what you want, but gets buried under the noise of daily life. On 29th and 30th November, that deeper part gets the chance to speak again. It reminds you of your purpose. It reminds you of your capability. It reminds you that the direction of your next chapter is being shaped right now in these quiet moments. Every month ends, but not every ending transforms you. The difference lies in how you use the final moment. If you move through 29th and 30th November with awareness, with discipline, with isolation, the end becomes a beginning. The closing days become the launch pad for the next cycle of your growth. And when December arrives, you do not enter it blindly. You enter it with intention, with clarity, and with the strength that comes only from facing yourself fully in the last 2 days. Isolation is not about running away from the world. It is about finally hearing what the world has been hiding from you. When the noise is constant, you don't realize how many things drain you quietly. But on 29th and 30th November, when you step back and choose to be alone, the truth begins to rise to the surface. These 2 days carry a sharpness, a clarity that does not exist when you are surrounded by distractions. They show you exactly what noise has been weakening you, exactly what influence have been pulling you away from yourself, and exactly what habits have been shaping you without your permission. When you isolate on 29th November, the silence feels strange at first. The mind has been trained to jump from one distraction to another, from one conversation to the next. But when you take everything away, you start to notice the invisible chains you have been carrying. You become aware of the people who drain your energy, the routines that suffocate your potential, the thoughts that repeat endlessly and lead nowhere. These realizations don't appear when you are busy. They appear only when you create space for them. And 29th and 30th November give you that space if you choose to take it. Noise does not always sound loud. Sometimes it sounds like comfort. Sometimes it sounds like routine. Sometimes it sounds like the familiar chaos you have grown used to. But on 30th November, when you isolate again, you see that comfort and noise often come from the same source. The distractions that keep you entertained are the same distractions that keep you weak. The habits that keep you busy are the same habits that waste your potential. These 2 days become an X-ray for your internal world. They reveal what you couldn't see before, simply because you were too close to it. On 29th and 30th November, the silence teaches you to observe yourself without filters. You start recognizing that some of the people you interact with don't support your growth. Some of the routines you follow don't align with your goals. Some of the thoughts you replay every day don't serve you. And this clarity is not gentle. It is direct. It is firm. It shows you where your energy leaks, where your discipline collapses, and where your potential is being suffocated by unnecessary noise. This self-observation is uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. Because once you see the truth, you can no longer pretend not to know it. The real reason to isolate during the last 2 days of November is simple. You cannot rise while carrying weight that pulls you down. These days allow you to see what that weight actually is. Without isolation, you walk into the next month carrying the same problems, the same distractions, the same emotional baggage. But with isolation, you peel these layers off one by one. You see your life with honest eyes. You understand what has been dimming your fire. You recognize the noise that has been quietly shaping your decisions, your emotions, your energy. On 29th November, the silence becomes your teacher. It shows you how much of your daily life is shaped by outside influence. You begin to notice how often you react instead of act, how often you follow instead of lead, how often you drift instead of decide. On 30th November, you see the deeper pattern. The world around you has been guiding your inner world more than your intention has. And once you see this, something inside you shifts. You realize that he who controls his internal environment becomes unshakable, but he who is controlled by external noise remains lost. These 2 days become a purification. You strip away the unnecessary. You clear the mental fog. You detach from the world long enough to hear yourself clearly. And in that clarity, you find direction. You find purpose. You find the courage to confront what needs to change. Growth does not happen when life is comfortable. Growth happens when you step into discomfort willingly and face the truth without running. That is exactly what the isolation of 29th and 30th November asks from you. You also learn something powerful. Not every voice deserves your attention. Not every opinion deserves space in your mind. Not every habit deserves a place in your life. When you isolate, You begin to choose consciously instead of unconsciously. You start protecting your inner energy with more discipline. You let go of what drains you. You strengthen what builds you. These 2 days become the foundation for who you will be when December begins. The wisdom of isolating on 29th and 30th November lies in understanding that silence exposes everything. It exposes your fear. It exposes your laziness. It exposes your unspoken desires. It exposes your inner strength. It exposes your weakness. And with that exposure comes the opportunity to change your direction. Self-growth begins when you confront the noise instead of living inside it. These 2 days teach you that the real enemies are often invisible distractions disguised as comfort, habits disguised as routines, people disguised as companions. When you isolate, you see these truths clearly, and once you see them, you can finally rise above them. On 29th and 30th November, the silence is not empty. It is full of answers that the noise has been hiding from you. And if you listen, those answers will guide your next steps with clarity, strength, and intention. Self-observation is one of the most powerful forms of transformation. Yet it is the one practice people avoid the most. The mind is always searching for movement, for noise, for distraction, for something to escape into. But on 29th and 30th November, when you choose isolation intentionally, you remove every escape route. You are left with only yourself, your thoughts, your habits, your emotions, your patterns. And in this rare silence, something remarkable begins to happen. You start to see yourself clearly, not the version you show to the world, not the version shaped by others, but the version that has been quietly guiding your life from the inside. These 2 days become a mirror, and that mirror does not lie. On 29th November, when you step into silence, the first thing you notice is how loud your mind actually is. Thoughts you ignored suddenly become clear. Patterns you repeated unconsciously begin to reveal their shape. The more you sit alone, the more you feel the truth that has always been there. You cannot transform what you refuse to observe. You cannot change what you do not understand. And you cannot grow if you stay blind to your own behavior. This is why the last 2 days of November hold such power. They force you into honesty with yourself. Self-observation is simple, but it is not easy. To sit with your own mind on 29th and 30th November without distractions means you must face the parts of yourself you usually avoid. You see the habits that weaken you. You see the emotions that control you. You see the excuses that limit you. And the more you watch, the more you realize that the greatest challenges of your life were not external. They were internal. The world around you may influence you, but the word inside you decides your direction. These 2 days allow you to witness that internal world with clarity. On 30th November, the silence becomes even deeper. The mind slows. The noise settles. You begin to observe the gap between what you say and what you do, between what you want and what you choose, between who you are and who you could be. This awareness is not meant to make you feel guilty. It is meant to wake you up. Because once you see your own contradictions, you gain the power to dissolve them. Growth begins the moment self-observation turns into self-realization. When you isolate during the last 2 days of November, you learn something essential. You are both the problem and the solution. You are the obstacle and the path. You are the limitation and the breakthrough. Everything begins with the way you see yourself. If your awareness is shallow, your growth will be shallow. But if your awareness is deep, your transformation becomes unstoppable. These 2 days give you the depth most people never access because they never slow down long enough to look within. Self-observation teaches you to separate who you truly are from the patterns you have repeated for years. It shows you that your reactions are not your identity. Your fears are not your identity. Your past is not your identity. They are simply habits of the mind, and habits can be rewired. On 29th and 30th November, you watch these habits with calm attention. You do not fight them. You do not judge them. You simply observe them. And in this simple act, they begin to lose their power over you. These 2 days become a training ground. You learn to watch your thoughts without being pulled by them. You learn to feel your emotions without being controlled by them. You learn to notice your impulses before acting on them. This ability changes everything because once you observe the mind, you rise above it. You stop operating on autopilot. You stop falling into the same cycles. You stop repeating the same mistakes. You begin living with intention instead of instinct. On 29th November, awareness reveals your weaknesses. On 30th November, awareness reveals your strength. You start recognizing the part of you that wants to grow, the part of you that is determined, disciplined, focused. This part has always been there, but noise kept it buried. Distraction kept it silent. Isolation allows it to rise again. You feel a clarity that cuts through confusion. You feel a certainty that replaces doubt. You feel a direction forming inside you. This is transformation in its purest form. Self-observation on 29th and 30th November is not just about seeing who you are. It is about deciding who you will become. The insights that come in silence are not random. They are instructions. They show you what to release, what to strengthen, what to change. These days become the blueprint for your next steps. And when December begins, you walk forward not as the same person, but as someone who understands themselves deeply. The wisdom of these 2 days lies in this. Growth happens inside before it happens outside. If you want a new month, a new direction, a new chapter, you must begin by seeing the old one with clarity. Self-observation gives you that clarity. And once you see your inner world clearly, your outer world cannot remain the same. This is why 29th and 30th November matter. This is why isolation on these days becomes powerful. Because in the quiet, you meet yourself. And when you truly meet yourself, transformation becomes inevitable. Stillness is not weakness. It is a force that sharpens everything inside you. When you remove movement, noise, and distraction on 29th, 30th November, something powerful begins to awaken within you. Discipline, intention, clarity, they do not grow in chaos. They grow in stillness. And these last 2 days of November become the perfect ground for that growth. When the month is ending and a new chapter is waiting, the silence you choose becomes the tool that prepares you for what comes next. On 29th November, when you begin isolating, you notice how restless your mind is. It wants to move. It wants to escape. It wants something to feed on. But when you sit still, you create a space where the mind can no longer hide behind activity. You begin to see how much unnecessary movement you depend on scrolling, thinking, reacting, talking, planning. All of it keeps you away from yourself. In stillness, that noise settles. And once it settles, your discipline has room to grow. Discipline is not built in motion. It is built when you learn to control what happens inside you when nothing external is happening. On 30th November, the stillness deepens. You begin to feel the power of intention rising. Intention always gets buried under the rush of daily life. But when you isolate during these final days, intention becomes sharp again. You recognize what you truly want, not what the world pushed onto you. You see the goals you abandoned. You remember the promises you made to yourself. Stillness gives these intentions a voice, and once you hear that voice, you can no longer ignore it. The silence of 29th and 30th November serves a purpose. It strips life down to the essentials. Without noise, you see your priorities. Without distractions, you see your weaknesses. Without movement, you see your truth. And when you face that truth, something changes inside you. You realize that discipline is nothing more than commitment to your truth. Intention is nothing more than clarity about your direction. Stillness becomes the environment where these qualities grow naturally. People think discipline is about controlling behavior. But on these 2 days, you learn the deeper truth. Discipline starts with controlling attention. If you cannot control where your mind goes, you cannot control what your life becomes. On 29th November, when you sit in quiet isolation, you train your attention to stay where you place it. You stop letting every external trigger pull you away. You stop letting your thoughts wander endlessly. You bring your attention back to yourself. This is the foundation of real discipline. On 30th November, this training becomes stronger. You begin to see the difference between wanting change and creating change. Wanting comes from emotion. Creating comes from intention. And intention grows only in silence. These 2 days show you that stillness is not empty. It is full of direction. It is where your intentions sharpen like a blade. When you are still, you no longer chase life. You choose your path. You decide your next movement. You act from purpose instead of impulse. The power of these final days lies in how they teach you to manage your inner world. When external movement stops, internal movement becomes clear. You see the chaos inside. You see the fears. You see the doubts. You see the inner resistance. But you also see the strength, the potential, the discipline waiting to be activated. In the quiet of 29th and 30th November, these inner forces reveal themselves. And once you see them, you gain the ability to direct them. Stillness teaches you a truth that most people never realize. Clarity is not found through thinking more. It is found through thinking less. It appears when the mind becomes quiet enough to hear what truly matters. On these last 2 days of November, when you isolate and slow down, clarity rises naturally. You begin to understand the decisions you need to make. You know what habits must end. You know what routines must begin. You know what kind of person December requires you to become. These insights appear not through effort, but through presence. On 29th November, the silence cuts through confusion. On 30th November, the silence sharpens your direction. You move from uncertainty to certainty, from scattered to focused, from reactive to intentional. These 2 days become a reset for your inner compass. They restore your ability to move through life with precision instead of chaos. When discipline and intention become sharp, your energy changes, your decisions carry weight, your actions become cleaner, your priorities stop shifting. You start living from a deeper place. And when December arrives, you step into it with strength instead of hesitation. This is the purpose of stillness. This is the gift of isolating on 29th and 30th November. You understand that motion without intention is wasted effort. But intention without discipline is wasted potential. These 2 days teach you to combine both. Stillness is the place where intention is born and discipline is the force that protects it. When you isolate, when you sit with yourself, when you let silence carve away distractions, you prepare your mind to move powerfully in the months ahead. 29th and 30th November are not ordinary days. They are the training ground for your next transformation. They show you that true strength is quiet. True focus is calm. True growth begins in the moments you stop running and finally meet yourself. In the depth of stillness, you sharpen your discipline, strengthen your intention, and prepare your spirit for the next chapter with clarity and purpose. The end of a month carries a symbolism most people never slow down enough to notice. But on 29th and 30th November, when you isolate intentionally, you begin to sense the deeper meaning. Behind endings and beginnings, these 2 days are not just the final pages of November. They are the threshold between who you were and who you are becoming. They hold a moment of transition, a space that exists between the old and the new. And when you step into that space consciously, it becomes a gateway for transformation. Growth does not happen automatically when the calendar changes. It happens when you use the final days with awareness, discipline, and honesty. On 29th of November, you begin recognizing the importance of closure. Every ending demands completion, emotional, mental, and energetic. Without closure, your past continues to follow you into the next chapter. And this is why isolation on these days matters so much. When you sit alone without the world pulling at your attention, you finally get the chance to process what you've been carrying. You look at the unfinished tasks, the unresolved emotions, the decisions you delayed, the intentions you ignored. These reflections are not meant to burden you. They are meant to free you, because you cannot begin a new cycle while dragging the weight of old patterns behind you. On 30th November, the power of transition becomes even clearer. You begin sensing a shift inside you, not forced, not dramatic, but steady. You feel the difference between who you were at the start of November and who you are now. You see the small changes, the lessons, the mistakes, the progress. And in this clarity, something important appears. The understanding that transformation does not happen on the first of the month. It happens in the preparation leading up to it. The transition between months is symbolic, but the work is internal. And the last 2 days of November give you that internal space to realign. Endings teach you accountability. Beginnings teach you responsibility. The transition between the two teaches you balance. On 29th and 30th November, this balance becomes visible. You begin to understand the rhythm of your own life, how you push too hard at times, how you retreat too suddenly. How you hesitate when you should act, how you rush when you should breathe. This awareness comes only in stillness, only when you isolate, only when you look at your life without distraction. The end of the month becomes a mirror, and that mirror reflects your patterns clearly. When you use these 2 days with intention, the transition becomes powerful. You realize that every month is a cycle. Every cycle has a rise, a plateau, and a fall. And in the quiet of 29th and 30th November, you see where you stand in your personal cycle. You see whether you are rising or falling, whether you are aligned or misaligned, whether your inner state is growing or stagnating. This clarity allows you to adjust your direction before stepping into December. Instead of repeating old cycles unconsciously, you consciously shift into a new one. These final days also teach you the importance of releasing. Before any new chapter can begin, something must be let go. Maybe it is a habit. Maybe it is a fear. Maybe it is a belief about yourself that no longer serves you. On 29th November, when you sit in isolation, you begin to feel what you must release. And on 30th November, you make the internal decision to let it go. This decision does not require force. It requires honesty. Release is not about rejecting the past. It is about freeing yourself from what no longer helps your growth. Transition also brings clarity about what you want to carry forward. Not everything needs to be released. Some habits deserve to continue. Some strengths deserve to be nurtured. Some intentions deserve to be deepened. These 2 days give you time to identify what is worth carrying into the new month. Without isolation, you walk into December unconscious, burdened, unprepared. With isolation, you step into it with purpose, precision, and power. On 29th and 30th November, you also experience the truth that time is not just passing, time is shaping you. These days remind you that life is not waiting for you to change. It continues moving whether you grow or stay stagnant. When you isolate, you step outside the rush long enough to see how quickly the year is moving, how quickly your life is unfolding. This awareness brings urgency, not the panic-driven urgency of fear, but the grounded urgency of purpose. It reminds you that you must take responsibility for your direction now, not later. The transition between months is a symbolic rebirth. And on 29th and 30th November, isolation gives you the mental and emotional space to prepare for that rebirth consciously. You evaluate your state, you adjust your path, you refine your intentions, you strengthen your discipline, you align your energy, and when December arrives, you do not enter it as the same person, you enter it upgraded, sharpened, awakened. These 2 days carry the wisdom of endings and beginnings. They teach you that growth happens in the quiet moments, not in the moments of celebration. Transformation begins in reflection, not in excitement. And the threshold between months is the perfect moment to reflect, refine, and reset. The strength you gain from using 29th and 30th November wisely will echo throughout the next month. The clarity you build in these days will shape the choices you make in December. And the stillness you cultivate becomes the foundation for your next evolution. The transition is where your power lies. The last 2 days of November are the doorway. How you step through them determines the quality of your next chapter.